thank you all for coming to the showroom here at Seattle Tech Week. We're here with our third panel, and we're going to be talking with a couple other founders, and we're going to come at, kind of from like a marketing lens and AI and content and that sort of thing. So with that, I'll go ahead and let Evan introduce himself. And when you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and then what your company does, and then we'll get into it.
Great. Great to be here. Nice to see everybody. A gorgeous Seattle summer day. My name is Evan Smith. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Ecosphere. And what we do is relatively straightforward. We are using voice AI, so think microphones, in the brick and mortar retail environment to capture conversations between associates and customers, and then using AI to first and foremost give really deep, personalized coaching and feedback to associates. What are the ways in which they excelled? What are opportunities for growth? Insights to managers. Who are the all-stars on your team that you need to celebrate and elevate? Who are the folks that with some targeted coaching and feedback you can move from good to great? And then visibility to brands. What's actually going on in your store? And so we're a little over a 1-year company working with a number of major brands and excited to be here.
My name is Dinesh, and I'm the founder of DripWave. We are an AI email marketing platform for e-commerce brands. We basically help them generate all those promotional emails, flows, or any sorts of different kinds of emails that the customers get. The major problem that we're solving is we're moving away from the templates approach, and we are an AI native startup. So we help them create those beautiful AI designs for the emails and everything. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Dinesh. So, Evan, you literally listen, and Dinesh, you're doing probably some listening as well on a different capacity on the e-commerce side. What I find super interesting about what you're doing, Evan, is just this almost like an analog feedback loop in the sense that obviously what you're doing is digital, but we think of brick and mortar as a very analog experience, and being able to track and monitor and improve upon that, I think becomes very important, especially as people are used to being able to get whatever they want as fast as they want. So that in-store experience becomes all the more important. Like I think we'll see more Apple stores from other companies, right? Like basically companies having specialized stores as opposed to like big super centers. So I'm just curious in kind of when you think about this is, how are brands responding to this, and what does that conversation typically look like when you're talking with a retailer or a brand about this listening?
Sure. So I think the first thing, this is sort of a fun trivia in the land of Amazon. Who knows how much of commerce at this point is e-commerce? Who wants to take a shot? See, well, I told you already. No, we had this conversation earlier. I'm not calling on you. Yeah, that's cheating. Take a guess. We'll go with the U.S. What percentage of retail in the U.S. is e-com? 65? Okay. Anyone else? Yeah? 25? Okay. 30? Okay. Well, you win and you still lose by Price is Right rules. It's only 15%. Only 15% of retail is e-com. And if you get into the data, that has mostly flatlined over the last couple of years. And so you will see in the future brands, or not brands, but e-com maybe taking a decimal point here year over year, but we're barring some kind of tectonic shift. We've reached peak e-com. So sorry about that, peak e-com. But what that means is 85% of revenues are coming through stores in the U.S. And for context, in leading to start this company, I was at Starbucks for a long time, and before that, worked in retail for over a decade. And so, what I know from my time in retail is that the greatest predictor of a high-performing store is that store has a high-performing store manager running it. And it kind of doesn't matter what you sell. It can be coffee in the case of Starbucks. It can be tires. It can be apparel. It sort of doesn't matter. And you talk to great store managers about, well, what is it that you do that makes you great? And they say, well, that's obvious. It's coaching and developing my people. And I don't have the time to do it because my HVAC's broken, or if you're a Starbucks store manager, I've got rats or bees or some other pest you got to deal with. Whatever the issue might be, you don't have the time to do the number one thing that drives your store. So this is where this opportunity, I think, that AI presents today is, how do you give time back? How do you take the most critical role in retail, the role of a store manager, and give them superpowers. And so that's a long-winded way of getting to your question, which is when I get in front of brands and I talk to the head of store operations for major brands, I do a demo, I show them what our tech can do, and 9 times out of 10, I get the like, never occurred to me that you could do that. That's pretty cool. And then like, I want to pilot. I want to do this in our stores because I want to see the impact, because I know that if I give superpowers to my managers, my stores are going to perform better.
Love that. And Dinesh, on your side, I can definitely see that need, right? Like the fact that you have to rely on a lot of analog information currently to create these emails. Like you have your digital team maybe create some imagery and then some copy, and a lot of the times it's iterations or variations anyway. So I'm imagining if you have an AI model learning off of those iterations, now it can kind of start to work on its own. So I'd love if you could just dive into that, and how are you explaining this to brands and what they need to be have happening?
Yeah, sure. So the first and the most foremost thing these brands actually want is the email has to be on brand. The AI doesn't have to know the context, really importantly. So the context piece is the super important piece where the brand assets, that's why we pull these brand assets from Shopify. So let's say their logos, their colors, their fonts, and their product images and everything as well. So those have been the most critical piece in the AI email generation as well. And you're absolutely spot on that they have to do different variations, and they want to do different segmentation of their audience as well. They want to send one kind of email to a certain audience. They want to send a different kind of email to a different audience. And that's where this AI tools are really super helpful, because usually the bottleneck, core problem that we are solving is usually it takes about 3 hours to create one beautiful email, including the design and copy. But with these AI tools, especially like DripWave, that cuts down to like 15 minutes or 20 minutes, because we've done the first draft, the initial legwork for them. And now they're just the driver where they're like editing that first generated email that they've created. So this allows them to actually create different variations while still being on brand and utilizing the brand assets that they have provided to us.
Dinesh, I'm going to ask you the question that I find most annoying that investors often ask, and it's like, what's preventing the incumbents from doing this? And if they start to do this, what does that look like for your business and even for brands for that matter?
That's a great question, and I always say startups have speed and the clarity and the vision and to execute faster, especially because for DripWave, that's our core business model. While the incumbents, they're doing many other things, and they are still stuck on the template-based approach, while we are the AI native startup. So we started our company just purely based on using these LLMs, while other incumbents have other approaches of what they do. So I would say like definitely the speed and the iteration that we do, and of course like the brands that we are signing up every day is like significantly higher than others.
And Evan, kind of similar to you, like what's the alternative to what you offer? Is there someone hiding in the other aisle to listen in, or
yes, yes, that's exactly right. I think there's we're doing something that to the best of our knowledge is novel. There's not someone else out there. It does not mean that someone couldn't come along tomorrow and begin doing this, but you're exactly right. There, you've got, for generations, you have secret shoppers, right? And you have NPS scores, and the secret shoppers come into a subsegment of your stores. They give broadly a sampling of here are the things that are working and here are the things that aren't, but they can't get very specific. And similarly, as you think about managers, managers can't be on the floor. They can't be there listening all the time. And so what we're doing is, again, it's sort of it's superpowers to manager, but it's also this thing that has not been possible before AI, to take in this voluminous amount of data that's being created in your stores and analyze it in a truly impactful and empowering way.
When I think about what both you're doing, it really makes me think of just, call it real-time data, right? Like real-time data analyzation. And To step outside of what both you are doing, what are some ways that you think about how brands can think about taking actions real time, whether that be with your tool or someone else's, or creating their own processes when it comes to whether that be AI or just process improvements, how they can be really instead of being so reactionary, but like almost in the moment making these adjustments.
I would say like definitely use different types of tools to be aware of how people are talking about your brand in general. And that could be using like different types of like multi-channel marketing or anything. And just being like making sure that you are aware how the customers are reacting. So like earlier panel actually gave a good example of Stanley. And now there was another example, which is not a e-com brand, but a SaaS company called Astronomer, and how they reacted to their PR crisis that happened there. So being smart about that, I think that's one way I can think about that they can react to the how customers are reacting to their brands and voices.
I'm both the CEO and the head of HR for Ecosphere, so we're not going to have that problem. I know, right? Exactly. We actually are not real time, and one of the things that we found out, kind of the early days of doing customer research, is that store associates, you ask them, hey, would you want something kind of coaching you in the moment with customers? And they say, no, that's super annoying. I don't want something chirping in my ear. Sell the belt. But what is useful is this: no one's watching, and no one's acknowledging me for doing great work. And so, the periods over which we do the feedback, it varies by brand, but call it every week you're getting a report. But I think a little bit to your question still, how often is a manager taking the time to do a one-on-one with their associate? It's probably, in retail, I find, is probably once every 2, 3, 4 weeks, because there's just so much going on. And so even a weekly set of feedback is more real time, is quicker than what they've been getting before. And I think, to your question, AI is speeding up the pace of everything that you can do and making everything available. And so the question is, what are the most valuable things you do today?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to open us up to questions here in just a second, but before I do, what do you think are some of the biggest problems that brands are facing that you've noticed? Again, whether that's through your company or just overall in general.
Tariffs.
Yeah, touch more on that.
Just about everyone we talk to, it's the first thing that pops up, and it's more the uncertainty, I think. And we sell into the retail operations team, so I'm not close to supply chain leaders or anything like that. But that is all many brands are talking about, because they're trying to figure out how to make the economics pencil.
I think for us, like one thing I've noticed is that people have been selling these different tools, AI tools, to e-commerce brands. And they've tried a lot of things. So there's a lot of fluff out there as well. So they're very picky, and in terms of what they want to buy, what they want to use, and the promises that these tools are giving, they actually serve that need. So solving actual problems for them and being able to actually create value for them is super important. And I think that's a problem that these e-commerce brands are seeing, and that's why they are very picky with us as well. And they do shop around and figure out what's the best tooling available out there in the market for them, and only then they choose it. So that's another problem that I'm seeing that they face.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's a lot of noise out there as well, and maybe they have a bad experience with a similar product, and so now they put you in that same bucket, even though you might be, very different there. So with that, I want to open up to questions. Anybody have a question for our panelists? Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess one very obvious value in tailored feedback. I mean, human roles, complex skills, this is not stuff we're born with. So I see a lot of potential here. I think my question is maybe twofold. On the front end, how do you navigate maybe I don't want to say maybe even ethics, but the concerns, the culture, the vibe of Big Brother syndrome, right? I totally get, I don't want something talking in my ear while I'm trying to form thoughts, but at the same time too, is that creating some sort of performance anxiety? Is that adding to churn, knowing my manager's always listening to me. You know, like I've never heard a frontline worker say that positively. You know, so how do you approach the culture problem and I guess, you know, shape this as a way like this is empowering you and you know, like how do you think about that? And then on the flip side, you're creating this rich data, you're handing it to a stakeholder, a manager, whoever, who you're already acknowledging does not have time in the day. How do you help close that loop? Here's the feedback on what your team should be doing. You know, Bob here is missing some critical skills. Then what? How do you close that gap?
Both great questions. I think the easy answer to the second question is we should do a demo and show you, you know, the personalized way, the way we think about managers and associates. It's a lot of next best actioning, and we're going to give you a bunch of data. Just because you're a manager of a retail store doesn't mean that you actually know how to interpret the data. Let's actually take it a step further and say, if you do 3 things this week, make sure you have a team meeting about how great they're greeting the customer. Make sure you have some role playing with a team around understanding customer need and, recognize Allison at a team meeting for the excellent work she's doing. So that's really how we think about the manager, and it sort of gets into the product and making the product feel personalized and human and empowering. I think on the first question, and it's a really interesting thing, again, more facts and data, but what do you think is the number one reason people leave retail jobs, frontline retail jobs?
Knowledge overload, professional paralysis, information asymmetry in general.
Yeah, it's a great guess. There's a lot of survey data out there that says the number one reason is pay. Full stop, right? I'm going to go somewhere else that'll pay me more hourly. But the number 2 reason is I get no feedback at all from my manager. And so what you actually experience in retail today with the overwhelming share of folks in working frontline retail are Gen Z. And Gen Z has grown up on Instagram, on TikTok, on any number of these other social media platforms. And so what we're finding, which is interesting and not necessarily intuitive, is there's first and foremost a very different standard of privacy and set of expectations. I had one head of HR for a very large retailer who said, you know, if I went out and told all of the folks that work in our stores the truth, which is that we don't monitor them in any kind of way, they wouldn't believe me. They assume that we're already doing this, which whole other questions about trust in our society and things like that. But if you grow up where everything's posted anywhere, you sort of have a different expectation. And so then getting back to why people are leaving retail jobs, what we also hear and also did not expect as we started this work is I heard from someone who said, you know, you're in a weird way, you're solving a problem I've been hearing a lot recently, which is that my managers tell me their associates finish a shift and they come up to them and say, hey, how'd I do? And the manager says, great, can you just come back tomorrow? And that's not quite satisfying because, again, if you grew up on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, you put a post out in the morning and at the end of the day, you have a bunch of metrics on how did you do? How did your friends perceive that joke or that video or whatever? Like you're getting data-driven feedback. And so there's also this generational hunger for data in a new way on how folks are doing their jobs. And this, again, is not why we started the company, but as we've gone deeper with a lot of these brands, what we actually hear is, I assume you're recording me anyway, so this isn't that creepy at all, and you're actually giving me the thing that my manager, whom I love, is too busy to give me, and so I'm interested. Let me play with it. And so there's an openness to having that first experience with the product, and then it's up to us to deliver and make sure it feels human and respectful of all of the different pieces of you as a frontline associate.
Hi there, quick twofer for you, my friend. Book recommendation, Damon by Daniel Suarez. It's a sci-fi book. I think you'll very much enjoy it without giving too many spoilers. And for you, I'd love to hear more about some of the like AI stuff that you've either tried or heard about that didn't work. I work in a non-AI tools for real-time data, so like very curious about your experiences with maybe AI mishaps.
So do you want just specifically what the company that we're working on, or just in general?
I would like to hear maybe some like AI solutions that have not worked, and because you mentioned like not solving real problems, I'm just more curious about like what real problems that you either face or have heard about.
Yeah, so the one major one is like the video advertisements. Like people have been claiming that Veo 3 has just solved that problem, and like you can just completely create like videos from AI, but that is far from truth. Like I've tried all different sorts of AI tools out there, and it still doesn't solve the problem completely. Yet you have to still do a lot of editing and like maneuvering to create that. So that's just one example, but I can give you like tons of examples. Even within our product, like we try to create like hero image within the email marketing, and that doesn't like, that's not that great, like because it's not on brand, it doesn't like align with the rest of the email. Similarly, like we can't do what the panel said earlier about product images. Like you can't really AI generate product images because they are very like specific and core to each brand. So we still like pull up from their Shopify store, and we can't just generate from AI. So those are like a couple of examples where the AI doesn't solve that issue completely yet.
All right. Well, thank you both for joining this panel. What are some good ways that folks here can stay in touch with you or follow along on what you are doing?
For me, ecosphere.ai, and then our LinkedIn is fairly active, so you can follow us there.
Yeah, for us, if you're a brand and if you want to try our product, it's getdripwave.com. And I'm also active on LinkedIn and Twitter. It's just my name, and you can reach out to me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Give them a round of applause, please.